We welcome you back to Kentucky Newsmakers, and we're glad you're here on WKYT. Despite what has been a tough dig out from a winter that just won't go away, home sales in Lexington have remained strong. The number of sales was down this quarter compared to last year, but inventory is very tight. Some say if you're not ready to move, be careful about putting that sign up in your front yard because your home may sell fast. Joining us to discuss buying, selling, and living trends in the Bluegrass is Justin Landon. He is the brand new CEO at the Lexington Bluegrass Association of Realtors, and Ty Brown, a longtime realtor and immediate past president of LBAR. Gentlemen, welcome. We really appreciate you coming in today.
Thanks for having us, Bill.
What are your initial impressions moving to Central Kentucky, the housing market? You told me you're in the market for a house yourself, right?
We are, and I'm coming from San Antonio, where we have a very similar difficulty with lack of inventory, and coming in here to Lexington, my wife and I have been out looking for homes, and had a great weekend. We saw 40 houses in 2 days.
Wow.
Our realtors working hard for us, and we found two that we really loved, and of course they were under contract with somebody else within about 36 hours.
So you're finding that? I mean,
absolutely.
Absolutely. Things are moving fast.
They are.
Ty, no surprise to you. You know what the market is like right now.
Yeah, the market's really really tight, and it's particularly in the lower price points, and but everywhere, you know, the well-priced homes, good condition, are selling pretty fast, and you have to be, as always, we've talked before, you have to have a plan to be ready, buyers and sellers, and it's important to have that conversation with your realtor early, how to be prepared for the market right now.
What are the factors that create that dynamic, the fact that the inventory is so tight?
Well, this time of year is always the busy time of year. You know, you always get people naturally moving, so the activity is out there, it's the same as it was, but for whatever reason, people have decided to not put their homes in the market, and in Fayette County particularly, there's not enough new homes coming onto the market to kind of replace the homes that are being sold, so it kind of bogs down the whole process from the top bottom, because there's just not a lot of new construction, and it's only going to get worse with the way the market is out there with what's available for building.
Is it a little bit like a domino effect in that people are afraid to put their house up because they don't know where they might go?
Yeah, the reality is what we see is that you probably can't buy the same home that you're selling for the same price, right? You can't find your next place to live in the price range that you're selling in. So it's simply a matter of supply and demand. You know, we are not building enough homes, and this is a nationwide problem. It's not just Lexington, but I think we have some exacerbated issues here. And until we get up to capacity where we're building enough homes to keep up with demand, we're going to continue to see tight inventory and increase sales price.
What are those exacerbated issues you mentioned? What are the things that are maybe a little bit tighter here than would be in other markets?
Well, every market's different, and you know, if you look across the country, there are some cities that have plenty of land to grow out, and you know, here we've obviously got our urban services boundary that there are some restrictions on land development, and that is controlling the amount of land that's available to be platted and built on.
Is that causing people to move farther out? Is that one of the issues?
Yeah, I mean, counties immediately surrounding Fayette County are doing very well, and of course they're benefiting from it, and which is okay for LBAR in general because we do cover 22 counties. But if you're talking Lexington particularly, that is driving people and builders who are doing it for a living just can't work here. There's just nowhere to build and work. They're going to Louisville and Georgetown and Richmond and Versailles, places like that, to make their living.
So I detect a little frustration, at least in Lexington, because of those restrictions.
Well, it creates it's an issue like right now. You know, affordability, housing affordability. We feel like LBR feels like there should be available supply of homes in all price, all levels of price. You know, you should be able, if you want to buy entry-level homes, you should be able to have a good supply of those. It should be out there. It's a natural market, and it's creating a situation where there really isn't. You know, that 200,000 and under, if you can find one. Is a tough market, which creates, again, that domino effect to talk about the moving up. The person wants to go from the 150 home to the 300 home, can't because there's nobody, there's no place to go. It just doesn't create that domino effect moving up. So, again, it's a problem that's going to be probably continuing if we don't find a way to bring in some homes at an affordable level for people, because the median price point right now, the median price is about almost $200,000. And if you go average price, which probably a little bit reflects the market a little bit better, it's almost $230,000. So that's historically pretty high. That's not an entry-level price point here.
And yet everybody seems to agree that what makes the bluegrass so special is this green space and these beautiful horse farms.
Absolutely.
And I know if you have flown into Lexington, you know what a treat it is to see, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they made sure to fly me in from Lexington for my interview so I would get that perspective getting off the plane. And I'll tell you, it's tremendous, which is why striking a balance is going to be so important in this discussion. The answer isn't one way all the way either way. We've got to find a way to maintain that character of Lexington that has allowed folks like Ty to make a great living in this business, buying and selling real estate. But at the same time, understanding that this is housing opportunity is key in this country. The American dream is what we strive for. Home ownership. It's how the vast majority of Americans build wealth. And if we're not providing those opportunities here in Fayette, they're going to go somewhere else. And you know what? We want them here.
So in addition to the restrictions, there are personal tastes. And 20 years ago, people were moving to the country. They wanted that extra large backyard, maybe some room to grow. 10 years ago, the recession brought people back to the urban areas, scurrying in so they didn't have so much expensive travel and so forth. Where are the trends right now in terms of where people seem to want to be?
Well, people want, the houses are getting smaller, average size, smaller, more energy efficient. That's a huge trend. The two biggest groups of buyers, the millennials and the retirees, baby boomers, both want smaller homes in places where they can walk to get something to eat, go to the grocery store, places like that. They don't necessarily want to commute in traffic all the time. And so it's gone away from being really close to work to being close to the place they want to live and have the community sense of feel. So those areas are doing fine, but homes in particular, smart homes are big. The energy efficiency, the big huge McMansions are kind of not in style for the two biggest buyer groups that we've got right now. So,
are the millennials prepared to buy homes? Are they coming around on that? It was talk they were big renters for a while. They didn't want the trouble of a lot of space.
I mean, we are seeing delayed home buying now. Folks are buying their first home a little later in life than they were in the previous generation. I think some of that's driven by later family formation as well. So it's not just driven by the sort of millennial personality that we hear about. And another thing we're a little concerned about in terms of that millennial buyer is historically one of the greatest tax incentives in our country is mortgage interest deduction, and the ability to deduct that on your taxes is why I bought my first home when I was 22. And today, we've now doubled the standard deduction, right? Which means that the vast majority of American homeowners are not going to be itemizing their taxes, which means they're not going to be claiming the mortgage interest deduction. And does that drive some buyer behavior a little bit? Are we going to see a little bit of a delay from that as well? I think it's entirely possible, which is why we pay so close of attention to all the regulations that happen both at the national, state, and local level, because it really does affect home buying behavior.
Despite the winter that won't go away, people have been out there buying, and you have some pretty good numbers, right? You pointed over to the weather office.
I see them over making the snow come over here, right?
That's right. But there's been a lot of that. But nevertheless, almost $500 million in sales in Fayette County. So the sales are strong.
Mm-hmm. Sales. Compared to what we were in a few years ago, you can't complain. But, like I said, we do see that trend going down a little bit. Activity right now inside Fayette County for the year to date is down 12% in sales. And again, we think that's 100% almost function of availability of homes. And the prices are up 10% for the year in Fayette County. If you go outside of Fayette County, take the whole area, the sales are down 5%. But the prices are still up 10%. So people, again, that shows that they're maybe moving out of Fayette County to keep buying, and it's driving prices up in outer counties as well.
All right, gentlemen, been an issue going on here locally about a subdivision that made some very strong restrictions regarding dogs. And I want to ask you about restrictions when people move into new neighborhoods. We're going to come back with that in just a moment as we visit with the members of LBAR here on WKYT's Kentucky Newsmakers. To WKYT's Kentucky Newsmakers, and we're visiting this morning with Justin Landon, the new CEO of the Lexington Bluegrass Association of Realtors, and longtime realtor Ty Brown. And we're talking about home buying and selling trends in the bluegrass. It's been a very interesting discussion. Should buyers think about, or at least be familiar with, the restrictions in a neighborhood when they go in? We've had this recent situation in Lexington where people are upset because certain breeds of dogs have been restricted. They didn't know that was a part of the rules. Some places don't allow fences and so forth. How are people to know what the rules are?
Well, deed restrictions and things like that are very important to create neighborhoods and that are protected to protect your home values. That's what they're there for. But what a lot of people don't know, if they don't know that those things can change, and some people are not even aware that those things even exist, that are buying a home or buying a property that has some restrictions that limits what they can or can't do at their home. So that's why it's very important to have a professional, have a realtor, and ask them about those things and get those restrictions. They have to be recorded. They are available, public record, and see what you can and can't do so you know that going into it, because they can be enforced and they can change. You
told me, strangely, Kentucky law does not require that those rules be given to the new buyers.
I hear quite often that people had no idea. It's not easy to find and to do it on your own. I mean, it's something that realtors know how to get, know how to find, but it's hard to do if you try to do it by yourself, because there's no uniformity in any homeowner associations or neighborhood associations. They're all different, and some have websites, some don't. Some are recorded, some aren't. So it's important to have that conversation with a professional realtor.
Justin, does that all come as a surprise to you coming to Kentucky? I mean, would you potentially see that as some legislation that should be looked at?
Oh, potentially. I think in many states, things like homeowners associations and deed restrictions and covenants that are made by communities that want to come together and say, we have a common interest to protect this area for whatever reason. It can be as specific as dog type or as general as we're going to have fences or not have fences. And so in many states, those are required to be delivered as part of the real estate transaction so that buyers are put on notice. But again, even in places where it is required, oftentimes they are not delivered unless the realtor is really working hard to chase those documents down, because too often, especially in a market like we've got here with tight inventory and homes moving really quickly, we're trying to rush through the transaction because we've got to get it done because it's such a competitive marketplace. So you really want to make sure you have a real professional working on your behalf.
And so people should really look over those documents and not just, you're given a pile of paper. I mean, how many people think, okay, we're going to do this quickly and get into our new home? They let the excitement overrun the details. You have to be careful in that regard.
And most realtors work in certain neighborhoods are at least familiar with it enough to let them know that it's an issue if they do want to explore it more.
Few seconds left. What do you say to people who want to put up that for sale by owner sign in front of their house and do it themselves?
Be careful. Well, first of all, don't do it, but be careful, because it's a very complicated transaction, and it's a big transaction. It can affect people's lives, good or bad, either way. And it's something that I think it's very important to consult somebody to do as a professional.
All right, Justin, you're going to find a house soon?
I sure hope so. We're working hard to do it.
Thank you for joining us, and thank you for being here for this edition of Kentucky Newsmakers on WKYT. I'll see you bright and early this week.